Hi, we're on the last leg of this whole organ installation. Alex is here with us again, and we're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about how the organ was designed to lead congregational song. That was a big part of what we talked about very early in the design of the instrument. And then Alex is also going to show us how the reed pipes are constructed and work and help fill out the sound of the instrument. So, Alex?
Yes, so 3 more stops to go. We're nearly there. This part of the process, the final process of building the organ is, if the organ were like a suit, first you have to take the measurements, then you actually have to build the suit, and so now we're in the final fitting stages. We're fitting it not only to the sound of the room, but we're also fitting it to the voices of the congregation. So we've been here at the Masses for the past few Sundays, and we've been listening to the congregation singing with the organ so that helps inform us how we need to fit the organ to the needs of this church. One of the things that we really tried for in this organ to support congregational singing is finding lots of variety of color in the same pitch region as people singing, and also the bass to give some support from underneath. The previous organ was built in a different style that had lots of upper work that came out over the congregation, and it doesn't do such a good job of supporting. It does a good job of shining through. This organ is meant to, it still has some sounds that can shine through, but it's meant to really blend in with the voices and scoop them up from underneath as well. So last video we talked about the flue pipes of the organ, the kind that works like a whistle. Now we're doing the reed stops, and they're generally more powerful, and they're generally, how to explain this? A lot of the whistle stops, like the kind that can shine through, are made up of little pipes, sort of like this. So that's not going to blend with the voices, that's going to shine through, but then we have these other also powerful stops, which are the reeds. This one is supposed to evoke the sound of a trumpet. A little imagination required, but it does a pretty good job. But it's the same the important thing is it's the same octave where we sing, and so it blends in with our voices when we're singing, whereas those little pipes don't. So it doesn't sound like a voice, but it's a similar kind of color, it's the same pitch region, and so when you actually sing with it, it does a fantastic job of supporting singing. So if we put back some of these low pipes from before, the low softer pipes, we add some of the higher pipes that sort of sparkle through the sound of the voices. We hear some low, we hear some really high, but we're kind of missing the middle, and that's where we sing. We sing in the region of the middle. So if we add some of these reed stops, like this trumpet from before, it rounds out the middle, and it supports where we need to be singing. So the reed stops offer a lot of flexibility as well. This one, which sounds like a trumpet, supposed to sound kind of like a trumpet. We have another one that's supposed to sound like an oboe. Another one that's supposed to sound like a clarinet. Another one that sounds like a bassoon. And so on. So the last 3 stops, now we have another trumpet over in the first manual, which is even more powerful, and it's not in tune yet. And so this is really the firepower of the organ, is these stops. Then there's another one like that, an octave higher, and so on. And then there's also some big reeds in the pedal, and it's amazing, it's powerful up here, and down in the church, when Bill was using it in a hymn the other day, it really was not too much, and it did a good job of supporting, but not overwhelming, even though when you hear it now on its own, it sounds enormous. So that's the trombone. But what is a reed stop? Well, it does not work like the flue stops that we saw. So here is an example of one of the trumpet pipes. As you can see, it's conical like a trumpet is, but there's a few differences. First of all, it only plays one note. That's important. Second of all, rather than having synthetic lips in here to make the sound, it actually works more like a clarinet. Here we have a vibrating tongue of brass, which is called the reed, just like a clarinet. In this case, it's brass, not cane. Instead of a mouthpiece, we have a tube, also made of brass, which we called the shallot. And then here is a spring which just controls the pitch. So when it's time to tune the pipe, you just have to tap this wire up or down, and that changes the pitch of the pipe. So one of the things that's really crucial with these reed pipes, and they're very long to make, it takes a very long time to make them, it takes a very long time to voice them, they're very finicky, but they're worth it. And that's probably the reason why there's only like 1/8 as many reed stops as flue stops, because they require a lot of work. They need to be tuned more often, but they're very special. They're very useful in solos, in accompanying, and really all the time. As you heard, there's loud ones, there's soft ones, but they're really they show the organ builder's art. So this pipe that I have here, it was nice and fast, but it was a little too clear when we played it. So rather than, we were looking for something that goes ba, and this one went ba, and so that's not exactly what we wanted. So how can I change that? Well, I take the wedge out. I can take all of this out. Now, as you can see, it's got a very precisely controlled curve to the tongue. If the curve is too exaggerated, when I press down, it'll lift in the middle, and that'll make a terrible sound when we play the pipe. So there's all kinds of nuances in here. So I need more curve to get a more beautiful sound. The problem is, if I go too far, then the pipe will become slow. It'll be beautiful. It'll have the ha vowel, but it'll go ha, and that's not acceptable. So it's a very fine balance. So I have a curving form block here. I have a burnisher, and I have my experience to know where do I place the reed, how hard do I press, how long do I do it for, and basically I burnish the back of the reed against the block. And now the curve is going to be higher than it was before. So we'll try the pipe in a minute, and if I went too far, it'll be slow. If I didn't go far enough, it'll still be clear and fast, and if I did it just right, it will be beautiful and fast.